Okay, my name is Norziana Lokman. I'm a research fellow from the Accounting Research Institute, ARI, UiTM Shah Alam. Okay, today I'm going to talk about one of the project done by my student. The title of the project is Corporate Governance and Debt to Equity Ratio of Top 100 Malaysia Public Listed Company. Okay, as the introductions, okay, so for this study, debt to equity ratio will be used as a proxy to financing decision. Okay, so this financing decision is actually referring to the capital structure decision, i.e. how company finance its daily operations or its daily activities. Either the company use debts or equity or a combination of both. Okay, so a prior study have found that corporate governance can actually help company in making better governance and sustainable financing decision. Okay, so in this study, we want to examine and to determine what is the level of debt to equity ratio among public listed company in Malaysia, and we want also to examine the relationship between corporate governance attribute, board size, board independent, CEO duality, managerial ownership, and institutional ownership, and the debt to equity ratio, i.e. the financing decision. Okay, the financial managers have found that it is quite challenging for them to make the right decision in terms of financing decision. Okay, so they are not sure what combinations of capital structures that can actually enhance the company efficiency as well as enhance the company profit. Okay, so capital structure is one of the remarkable parameter on the valuations and the economic directions of the company, and it also can represent a financial risk to the company. Okay, so through debts and equity ratios, okay, the company are able to measure, okay, how much debts that the company use in order to finance its activities. Okay, so if the company have high amounts of debts, okay, in their capital structures, so this means that the company have bigger liability to meet. Okay, in order to pay their short-term as well as the long-term liabilities. So when company have high debts, it means that the company have higher leverage. So this is not good, because if company have higher debts, it means that it will force company into a financial distress, and at the end it will lead company to insolvency situations. Okay, and of course at the end the company will have to be liquidated and wind up. Okay, and another key issues is about the lack of governance, especially in highly leveraged company. So if company have a lack of corporate governance, it can actually lead to a catastrophe, okay, to the company as well as to the country. And corporate governance has been argued by prior studies to be a very effective tool in order to reduce conflicts of interest, and also a good monitoring tool in order to monitor the behaviors of the managers as well as the directors, especially in terms of their decision making in terms of financing decision. And last and not least, the corporate governance also can reduce the tendency that the company make a wrong decision, which they make a risky kind of financing decision, which can expose company to a financial distress. Okay, so there is little attention that has been given by the prior study to look at the relationship between corporate governance attributes and financing decisions of the company. Okay, In terms of the hypothesis of this study have six main hypotheses. The first hypothesis was developed based on the first research objective of the study, where we want to determine the level of financings decisions of the top 100 public listed company in Malaysia. So the first hypothesis is the level of financing decisions in terms of debt to equity ratios among top 100 public listed company in Malaysia is moderate. And for hypothesis number 2 until number 6, is used in order to achieve the objective number 2 of the study, that is to look at the relationship between the corporate governance attributes and financings decision. So in this study, we predict that all the corporate governance attribute that we have selected, such as board size, board independence, CEO duality, managerial ownerships, and institutional ownership, has a relationship with the financing decision based on the debt to equity ratio. Okay, for the research method of the study, this study is actually based on the correlational study, because we want to examine the relationship between the independent variables, that is corporate governance attributes, and the dependent variables, that is debt to equity ratio, which is a proxy to the financing decision. Okay, so the populations of the study, populations is based on 100 top listed public listed company in Malaysia, and from this 100 listed public 100 company, we have to reduce another 16 company, because the company is fall under the finance and insurance sector, which have different legal requirement and stringent corporate governance requirement compared to other company. And we also have to exclude another 7 companies, because they do not have complete annual report for the year, for the 3 years period. Okay, because this study focus on the companies that have annual report for a period of 3 years, from 2016 to 2018. Okay, so the main data of this study is collected from the secondary data, that where we use annual report of the company, and the variables and the measurement that we use in this study, as I mentioned earlier, we have corporate governance attributes and the dependent variables, and on top of that, we also have additional control variables, that is firm size, firm liquidity, firm age, and firm profit. Okay, so all these variables have been chosen based on the prior study, and the measurement instrument that we use, we adopt also from the prior study. Okay, I will show you the summary of the variables and the measurements that I use for this study. Next, in terms of analysis, the all data that we collect will be all data that we collect is analyzed using descriptive analysis, correlations, as well as regression analysis. Okay, and then for the model of the study, okay, we use a regression model, where the financing decision model will consist of board size, board independent, CEO duality, managerial ownerships, institutional investors, and then we include 4 control variables, that is firm size, firm age, firm liquidity, and firm profits or financial performance of the company. Okay, so table 1 shows you all the variables and the measurements instrument that we use for this study. Okay, so we have about 10 variables. 1 variables under dependent variables, that is financial decision, which is proxy by debt to equity ratio. And then we have independent variables, that is board size, board independent, CEO duality, managerial ownership, and institutional investors. Okay, and all these are based on the prior study instrument. Okay, and then we have control variables. For control variables, all the instrument that we use here are based on the prior study, and we adopt all the instrument from the prior study. Okay, so based on the result for the first objective, okay, we want to determine the level of debt to equity ratio. So based on descriptive analysis, we use the mean value of the study, which shows that the debt to equity level among this company at the 0.4778. Okay, so it means that the level of debt equity of the 100 public listed company is at the moderate level. Okay, and then result for the correlation analysis in table 3 present third here shows that only two variables, that is the firm size and firm liquidity, that have significant correlations with the debt to equity ratios. Unfortunately, none of the corporate governance attribute have any significant correlations with the debt to equity ratios. Okay. So table 4 shows the multiple regression result on the financing decision model that we have presented earlier. So based on this table, it shows again, okay, that firm size and firm liquidity have a significant relationship with the debt to equity ratio. And then for the corporate governance attribute, none of the corporate governance attribute that we have selected have any relationship with the debt to equity ratios. And this model, the R square is 24.5%, which means that this model are able to predict about 24.5% of the result. And then so the in terms of discussions and the conclusion, there are four key findings. First one is the level of the debt to equity ratios, which is at moderate level. So this indicate that most of nation company under the top 100 have a low risk compared to other company. And then none of the corporate governance attributes in this study have a relationship with the debt to equity ratios. And then for the control variables, we find that liquidity has a significant negative relationship with debt to equity ratios. So this means that the liquidity, the higher the liquidity of the company, the lower will be the company choose to finance its activities with debt. Okay, while in terms of company size, it shows a positive and significant relationship with debt to equity ratio. It means that the bigger the size of the company, the higher the chances that the company will use debt to equity debt more. Okay, and then in terms of the contribution, empirical, this study contribute in terms of empirical literature on capital structure and corporate governance literature, and it also provide additional support to the prior study, where in the prior study by Kumar and as well as Zabri, they found that none of the corporate governance attribute have any relationship with the debt to equity ratio. Okay, in terms of limitations of the study, this study used a very small sample size where we only use 77 out of 100 top listed company, and then this study only focused on a Malaysian company. Therefore, the generalizations of the result of the study cannot be extended to the bigger size of the company in Malaysia as well to the other geographical location. And then for future research, we would suggest that for a study like this to be carried out, they need to extend the size of the sample to include all company if possible, and then to if possible also to look at the other companies in other countries. Okay, and then we also would suggest that the researcher use other method of measurement to measure the dependent variables. Okay, and last but not least, uh, as a conclusion, we can say that the financing decisions that made by the top 100 public listed company in this study are more likely to be influenced by the company liquidity and size rather than the corporate governance attributes. Okay, so with that, I end my presentation.